Heirs of Simon versus Chan, GR number 157547, dated February 23, 2011. This is for criminal procedure, specifically on Rule 111, Prosecution of Civil Action. Subtopic: When civil action may proceed independently. Note that an independent civil action to recover the value of a bouncing check issued in contravention of BP 22 cannot be maintained under both Supreme Court Circular 57-97 and Rule 111 of the Rules of Court, notwithstanding the allegations of fraud and deceit. There is no independent civil action to recover the civil liability arising from the issuance of an unfunded check prohibited and punished under Batas Pambansa bilang 22. And a violation of Batas Pambansa bilang 22 will give rise to civil liability. Facts of the case. This case was about the independent civil action filed by the private respondent in order to recover the value of a bouncing check issued in contravention of BP 22. This was an original case for violation of BP 22. The private respondent, Elvin Chan, filed the said criminal case at the Metropolitan Trial Court against petitioner Eduardo Simon. While the said case was pending, more or less 3 years later, the private respondent, Elvin Chan, commenced another civil action for the collection of the principal amount involved in the said criminal case. The material allegations in the civil action include fraud and deceit. Petitioner Eduardo Simon filed an urgent motion to dismiss the civil case on the ground of litis pendentia and argued that the private respondent Elvin Chan failed to reserve his right to institute a separate civil action. The private respondent Elvin Chan countered, among others, that he made an implied waiver by not making any allegation of damages in the criminal case and by not being represented by a private prosecutor. Furthermore, the private respondent claimed that the action for civil case was one that falls under Article 33 of the Civil Code of the Philippines, as it was based on fraud and therefore may be prosecuted independently of the criminal action. The Metropolitan Trial Court ruled in favor of petitioner Eduardo Simon mainly on the ground of litis pendentia and held that the private respondent, Elvin Chan, did not waive or made a reservation as to his right to pursue the civil branch of the criminal case. The Regional Trial Court upheld the dismissal of private respondent's complaint. However, the Court of Appeals overturned the Regional Trial Court's decision and applied retroactively the changes in the revised rules on criminal procedure pertaining to independent civil action. It held that since the complaint was also brought on allegation of fraud under Article 33 of the Civil Code, the same may proceed independently even if there was no reservation as to its filing. At the Supreme Court, petitioner Eduardo Simon argued that the Court of Appeals erred in ruling that the subject case was an independent civil action because it was a simple collection suit for a sum of money. Issue: whether the civil action to recover the amount of the unfunded check was an independent civil action. Ruling: no. The civil action to recover the amount of the unfunded check was not an independent civil action. Section 1, Rule 111 of the Rules of Court provides that there is no independent civil action to recover the value of a bouncing check issued in contravention of BP 22. Furthermore, the Supreme Court circular provides that the criminal action for violation of Batas Pambansa bilang 22 shall be deemed to necessarily include the corresponding civil action and no reservation to file such civil action separately shall be allowed or recognized. In this case, the basis of the civil action to recover the amount of the unfunded check was respondent's criminal complaint against Simon, which arose from a charge of violation of Batas Pambansa bilang 22. The Court of Appeal's reliance on an existing jurisprudence to give due course to the civil action of Chan independently and separately of the criminal case was unwarranted, since said jurisprudence involved a prosecution for estafa, which was not on all fours in this case, which was a prosecution for a violation of BP 22. Therefore, Chan's separate civil action to recover the amount of the check involved in the prosecution for the violation of BP 22 could not be independently maintained under both Supreme Court Circular 57-97 and the aforequoted provisions of Rule 111 of the Rules of Court, notwithstanding the allegations of fraud and deceit. In applying the foregoing, the petition was granted and the Court of Appeal's decision was reversed and set aside.